this afternoon at 2 with Sean Hannity, right before Joe Walsh at 5 on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. This story comes to us from Elgin. Greg Schiller, resident of Elgin, is also managing director at a ministry, pastor at Light in the Darkness Ministry. He decided to offer up his unfinished basement at his home for the homeless during this Arctic blast that we've all been enduring over the last several weeks. But the city of Elgin got wind of it, and they commanded Mr. Schiller to stop opening up his home to the homeless for these quote-unquote slumber parties because, of course, it's against city code. City spokesperson Molly Center saying, "While we appreciate those who volunteer to provide additional resources in the community, Mr. Schiller's house does not comply with the codes and regulations that guard against potential dangers such as carbon monoxide poisoning, inadequate light and ventilation, and insufficient exits in the event of a fire," she said. I suppose the obvious reaction is, I don't know, if I was homeless, maybe inadequate light and ventilation would be the lesser of my concerns when it's 20 below outside.
The least of my concerns, yes.
So, the city ordinances run into this resident's desire to help out his fellow man. How should this be resolved? Let's get Greg Schiller's perspective. Greg Schiller joins us now. Greg, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So, before we
I got to answer something really quick.
Oh, go ahead.
On this.
Go
you
ahead.
brought up the smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors and stuff. The city came down here and tested those. They're here. They work.
Oh,
I also have a fire extinguisher in my basement, and I stayed up with them all night supervising.
Okay.
Well, how many people are we talking about? How many people are in your basement right now?
Right now, me.
Okay.
How many people?
I'm down here. I'm sitting down here talking to you.
How many people, were you housing is the question.
At most 15.
Okay. And so here's the thing. Now, I'm going to be the kind of compassionless bureaucrat here and ask this question.
Okay, that's cool. I've been dealing with them a lot lately.
All right, so Greg, by calling these slumber parties, isn't that indication of guilty knowledge that you knew you were breaking the local ordinances, that you knew the code didn't allow for this, and so you shouldn't be doing it?
Well, first off, these people are my friends. I've been working in the homeless community for going on 6 years here. I know all of them. I know every homeless person on the street here. I have relationships with several of them, the ones that would let me close enough to have that relationship. The people that were down here are all my friends. And, this is basically the city telling me who I can have over, who my friends can be, and where we can congregate in my home.
Was there indicators of slumber party of the?
Well, I called it movie nights, but it fell under as far as
movie night,
because that's what we did. We watched movies all night, drank coffee, hot cocoa. And
stuff.
Hot
cocoa. That's slumber party fare.
That is.
Did you have s'mores? Because I think that would seal it for you.
No, we didn't have s'mores, but we had all kinds of pastries and stuff, and
what movie?
The typical things that my cookies and.
What movies?
It definitely fit. Oh, well, let's see. I've got a whole collection of them here.
All right.
I got to turn the light on.
Oh, well, there is light down there.
We watched like Courageous.
Courageous was good.
I've got an old Lassie movie here that we watched one night. And then we watched some action films like Divergent and The First Night.
Okay.
Well, that's a pretty good selection of movies.
So, do you have a neighbor who complained and didn't want like the foot traffic,
we
or
believe
what's
that it was.
happening?
We believe that the complaint came from someone who has a personal axe to grind with me, who doesn't live anywhere around here. All my neighbors around me, they support me. They bring us donations. They love what we do here. It's the neighborhood I live in is very blue collar. I've got Section 8 housing right behind me. I live in a cul-de-sac with in the cul-de-sac is all Section 8 townhomes. None of my neighbors were calling because they're over here bringing me donations.
Well,
They're
last
coming
winter,
to we do homeless barbecues in the summertime here
Okay.
with live bands in the garage and 2 barbecues going, and we've got the entire homeless community here at the house. And they come out and they bring food for them too. They join in and they participate. So it didn't come from anyone here.
Well, so tell me, last year you had people in your garage, correct?
That's where I started it. Yeah, that was an emergency thing.
Yeah.
I got a call from a homeless gentleman who said the wind's going to be blowing really hard tonight. The temperature, the wind chill's going to drop down really low. Can you help us? And the only thing I had at the time was my garage. So I fired up some propane heaters. I cracked the doors so we had ventilation, and I brought 15 people into the garage. And I did that for about, I want to say, 2 weeks. And I had a gentleman who has a heart condition who was having a problem. He almost passed out. So I had to call for an ambulance for him, and the EMTs reported us to code.
Yeah, right.
So that's when I moved him into the basement.
So this is important to note because it wasn't like this is a one-off. This is something, like you said, these are your friends. This is something you actually are doing year-round, different activities depending on the season. And
right.
so
I've been trying to push the city to help us get a building to help end the homeless problem in Elgin, because it is an issue here.
Yeah, but there's
we've
shelters.
We've got shelters here, but they're not always open, or they don't take all the people. Subsequently, on any given night in Elgin, there's probably about 30 people left on the street.
Really?
And so, right, and so, and the other thing too, we talked about this a bit earlier. Well, I mean, there's a pad shelter, and there's a church that has a shelter. At least it was reported by NBC5. First United Methodist Church of Elgin operates a shelter.
Yeah, they only open up when the temperature's 15 degrees, and they don't, or lower, and they don't consider wind chill.
Right. Well, and the other thing too is, hey, if these homeless people that know you and trust you, if they want to go to your place rather than pads, what's wrong with that?
The only problem I have with that is I know pads is funded by the numbers. So for every person that's not there tonight, they won't receive X amount of dollars.
Okay.
And I don't want to do that. I mean, because they are trying to do good work here. They're housing people down there. I know that at times in the wintertime, they've got up to 60 people in there. So I don't want to interfere with them, but the people that are coming to me are the people that can't get into pads.
Yeah, okay.
They're the people that pads turns away for various reasons, for criminal history, sex offender status, drug or alcohol use, mentally ill, whatever. I don't have any problem with these people. They respect me. They respect my girlfriend. They respect my neighbors. We've never, ever had to call the police in 2 winter seasons or when we were having our homeless barbecues in the summertime. We've never had a problem with them.
Okay. Well, where does it stand now with the city? Because did they say that you have 24 hours to return your basement to storage, or they'll take it down?
That's already happened. That 24-hour period has expired. I did comply. I did restore my basement to a storage area. They did come down, take pictures, and they said that no further sanctions are going to be levied against me or my girlfriend. So right now we're reaching out to another area church that has expressed a desire to work with the homeless. We're going to talk to them next week and see what they have in mind.
Yeah, but it's going to be minus 20
Really, what we need here, we need a building that we can operate as a shelter that will take everybody and turn no one away.
Right. Well, okay.
We don't have that.
And that,
Rockford has something like that. Aurora has something like that. Chicago has things like that. We don't have it here, and because of it, people are falling through the cracks and they're ending up on the street. And all I'm doing is trying to fill a gap in the wintertime.
Yeah, and maybe I wonder if a conversation with some village officials to say, there's a medium term or maybe even a relatively short term solution to this, and you're describing one possible avenue. But in the interim, living in real time and this real weather, hey, why don't you guys just, back off and let me have my friends over? We're not doing anybody any harm, and let's work together to find this housing solution such as one you're describing.
That I tried to talk to the city code officials about that. I had the supervisor was out here, and they're pretty to the letter. Their issue is, they're talking about a hypothetical, and I'm talking about a definite. They're talking about the hypothetical fire that kills everybody in the basement.
Right.
Which, if a fire were to start upstairs, there's nothing down here to burn. This is a concrete floor and concrete walls all the way up to the ceiling. The only thing wooden here is the ceiling itself. if there were a fire to start down here, like I said, I'm up all night and I'm supervising. I'm alert. I can get these people out of here in under a minute.
But get beyond the code enforcement officers to the actual elected officials. Is always my question.
Well, yeah, the next thing we're going to do, we are going to be talking to the city council and the mayor here in the coming week. But I don't know what good it's going to do. But what I'm looking at is, their issue is a hypothetical. My issue is a definite. You leave these people out in the cold, someone's going to die.
Yeah.
Period. That's going to happen. We just had a man freeze to death at the Clark and Lake Station in Chicago 2 days ago.
I know. That was awful.
Sitting on a bench.
Okay, so the 15 people that were sleeping in your basement, they will be safe because we just have to get through Sunday, and then when Sunday things
right. When the temperature rises above 15 degrees, there will no longer be a shelter for these people that were in my basement. These people that cannot get into pads, cannot get into the crisis centers, typically for women and children, so they're not going there.
Right.
Pads is the only other option, or the shelter at First United Methodist Church, which is it's just a temporary warming center. I ran that shelter for 2 winter seasons, and they don't turn anybody away. If they're high, drunk, whatever, they can come in as long as they're behaved. The problem is it only opens at 15.
Yeah, right.
What do they do? I mean, our bodies are what is it, 83% water? Water freezes at 32 degrees. What do they do from 32 degrees down to 15?
When
that shelter opens for them, we've got, they have about 40 people a night down there when they're open. Granted, some of those people are people that can get into pads. Pads is all the way out on the west side of town. A lot of them don't want to walk all the way there in the cold. All of the soup kitchens and resources for them are in downtown Elgin. So some of them, probably about a half dozen to a dozen of them, will end up at that shelter overnight.
What is the Managing Director, Light in the Darkness Ministry? Tell us about Light in the Darkness Ministry.
Light in the Darkness Ministry is, I used to, like I said, I used to run the shelter downtown. I founded a ministry called Matthew 2540 about a year and a half ago. I resigned from that and went out to I'm a street minister. I want to be on the street. I want to be doing things at street level. I don't, we started a 501c3, and I really didn't want to be a part of that. So I went back to the street, and I'm in the street with the people, which is where I belong. I'm a soldier.
Least of my brother.
Sitting at a desk. I'm a soldier. I'm out there with the people, showing them love, showing them kindness, and helping them any way I can. I'm always available to them, and that's what Light in the Darkness is about.
All right.
I have a small group of dedicated volunteers. We distribute clothing. We distribute toiletries. We were providing shelter, but the city says we can't do that anymore. Various needs. Take them to a doctor's appointment if they have a doctor appointment. If they end up hospitalized, hey, Greg, can you come pick me up at the hospital? They'll let me out. We'll go get them. Get them into rehabs. Some of them have some very serious drug or alcohol addiction issues. If they want rehab, they want help, we'll get them into rehabs. We'll transport them as far as Davenport, Iowa, to the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center out there if we have to.
Well, maybe we can encourage some of the enlightened members of the city council to offer a special dispensation here. But Greg Schiller, Managing Director of Light in the Darkness Ministry, pastor, street minister, as he describes, good luck with the situation there and your work on behalf of the least of your brother per Matthew 25:40.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for joining us. Appreciate it.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.